Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's on the road to 100 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love rankings, sports news, sports betting, reactions, anything at all in the sports world, it is all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. So I promise you, your subscription will be well worth it. And yeah, here we go into today's video. We're going to start off with the Commanders versus the Green Bay Packers tonight on Thursday Night Football. We're just going to kind of go over this briefly because I want to react to this game tomorrow for a little bit anyway before my slips for Sundays. That is one of my favorites. I love all my segments just the same, but slips for Sundays, man, I get so excited before that because we literally are a couple days away from Sunday again, and that means parlays, fun bets, anything like that. So, and I know you guys really enjoy that here on the podcast as well. So, Commanders versus Packers tonight. I think this is going to be one of the better Thursday Night Football games of the year. I'm already calling that here in week 2. Man, the way the Packers played last week, and the Commanders, they didn't play great last week. They didn't play as good as Green Bay did last week, but the Commanders definitely played a really good football game last week. And, I mean, I know they were going against the Giants. The Packers definitely going against a tougher opponent with the Lions. And the Packers just handled business in Detroit. I said the other day that Detroit really had nothing going in their favor. They weren't at home, a divisional game against a team that just traded for Michael Parsons like a week or two before the game started. And, all the hype in the world and all the eyes of the world were on Green Bay, national television at 4:30 p.m. So nothing at all was in Detroit's favor. I mean, you can say that for any team. It doesn't have to be in their favor for them to have to win a game. Like, I'm not using that as an excuse, but, the Packers took full advantage of it. That's what I'm saying is, man, they just went out there and they proved everyone right. If they would have went out there and really sucked on Sunday afternoon, it would be a lot of more different vibes heading into this game. That's for sure, man. The Packers had a ton of hype coming into last Sunday, and dude, they prevailed with that. And I'm telling you, this game with the Commanders, this is going to be a really, really good game. I'd like to see how Jane Daniels does against that pass rush because Jared Goff got kind of eaten alive. He didn't get kind of eaten alive. He did get eaten alive last week. It's crazy because that Lions offensive line was historic. Not even a year ago, like 8 months ago. The team was absolutely historic. That offensive line was, just the offense in general. And that Green Bay defense made them look not even half of what they were last season. It's pretty incredible to watch. Now, whether that had to do with it being the first week or not is up in the air. I think it definitely had to do with it a little bit. Teams, we know they don't play as well. You have a lot of wonky wins, you see players at the top of the stats sheet, whether or not it's for sacks, receiving yards, or anything, and you're like, this dude ain't going to be on here in 3 weeks. It's probably names you've never heard of, so you have to let these players kind of break in a little bit, kind of get used to being back on the field again. It doesn't matter if they're 10-year vets. Like, these guys need a couple of weeks to really go out there and compete, and, but I think even regardless of that, the Green Bay pass rush is so much improved with Parsons and just in general. The defense looked kind of a lot like the Rams defense last season. Like, the Packers defense the last few years has been decent, but hasn't been great. This seems like a great defense this year. The only thing that worries me a little bit still is the secondary. I'd like to see where that's at in a few weeks. Like, maybe these corners they got really are going to work out. That's the thing with Green Bay, is that Green Bay hasn't necessarily always had the biggest names in the world, and they've always made it work. So that's why I'm not as worried with Green Bay as I would be with a team like Cincinnati or something on defense where, they don't necessarily have the names. They have some names here and there, but the guys that you don't know are awful at playing defense. Green Bay's not like that. Like, you can't really name everyone on defense. You have McKinney in the secondary, which helps out a lot. But besides that, the average fan wouldn't really know who's in the Green Bay secondary. And that's where the Green Bay makes it work because unlike, like I said, teams like Cincinnati, where most people can't name their secondary, and that's because they're terrible, Green Bay, you can't name their secondary, but they're at least decent. They may not be great. They may not be all the way good, but they're decent. They're viable on the field. They're not literally to the point where you're just giving up all these yards and you're in a 40-40 shootout every game. Cincinnati last year. And I'm not trying to pick on Cincinnati, by the way, but that's the best example I could really get, to be honest with you. And there's a ton of other teams like that in the league. But the Packers pass rush, I'd really like to see how they are against I think a true test right now is last week, Jared Goff is kind of a statue. We know him at quarterback. If you let him be comfortable, especially behind that offensive line, Jared Goff is literally going to pick you apart, and they're going to score like 40 points. But if you get pressure on Goff like they did last week, they're going to score, 14 points and just not even be in the game. So, I mean, they had 7 points until like 40-some seconds left in the game, and they got a touchdown with like 40 seconds left. So it was really even worse than the score looked, to be honest with you. I'd really like to see this defense against Jane Daniels tonight. We are. And this, to me, will be a really true test. Like, if they can put Jane Daniels under duress and really contain him from breaking out, running out, whatever it is, this Packers defense and the team in general, I will legitimately start calling. I think they are a Super Bowl contender, but I think they'll really be in like the upper echelon, like the 1A, 1B kind of teams. Which is really just the Eagles at this point. I mean, no one else in the NFC besides Philly, I really think can compete for a Super Bowl. San Francisco, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, which I think still kind of has the personnel to do so. Does not seem like they can be on the field. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute or so, or in a couple minutes. So just wait up for that. The Rams, I kind of see the Rams play on Sunday. I'm not too impressed. My stock on the Rams has dropped so much like the last month. Between Stafford's back injury and just, it's a lot of weird vibes going around with the Rams right now. They do always heat up at the end of the season. Like, they have not had great starts the last few years at all. And at the end of the season, people are like, dude, this team's on a freaking heater right now. And they just look like a completely different team than when they do in week 5. So that's why I'm not holding the Rams out, because the Rams the last few years, the slow starts they've had have contributed to them at the end of the season looking like they're like the second best team in the NFC. Honestly, I think last season they could have went to the Super Bowl. They were on the brink. They're on the game-winning drive of beating Philly. I think they would have went and beat Washington. Now, whether or not they would have beat Kansas City, we don't know. I mean, we've seen the way Kansas City played the Super Bowl due to Philadelphia's defense, but the Rams' defense was not as good as Philly's, but it was a really good defense. So I would have liked to think if they would have went on and scored on that game-winning drive against Philly, that they may have went on to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, they've only added on to that team. The only thing is Stafford's a year older, and he's at the age where a year older means a lot. You start losing arm strength. That's the thing with quarterbacks his age. Once you get to about your late 30s, early 40s now at this point, we'll say, once you lose it, like Peyton Manning, when he lost it, it never came back. It never once came back. He was just done. And a lot of those is because those guys' arms were deteriorating off their shoulders. Now, Matthew Stafford's arm is perfectly fine, but you start worrying about his back. Like, what if 3 weeks from now his back injury resurfaces again? He takes a hard hit, and he starts holding his back. That might be it. I mean, that could literally be it for Matt Stafford. The Rams have kind of been in a weird spot, too, with the quarterback situation as well. But, I just, there's like a 1A, 1B, and a kind of a 1C maybe you could throw in the mix there in the NFC. The Lions, after last week, don't feel like they're in that mix right now. No, I think they will be soon. But, the Packers could definitely be in that mix. The Commanders, a lot of people say they're in that mix. I don't know if I'd quite put them in that tier yet. Now, if they're going to beat Green Bay tonight, they absolutely are. I think this game is very, very big in terms of what we rank these teams in the NFC. Who else is a true Super Bowl contender besides Philly in the NFC? Like, Philly's a team to beat in the NFC right now. Detroit's kind of worked its way out of that conversation, especially after last week, and people are kind of looking for that 1B team. San Francisco is plagued with injuries. Seattle, they lost to San Fran last week, and do they really have the team to go on to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I think the team can win maybe a playoff game. They can even get there. And, we're going to have to see. Tampa, I really like Tampa, but I think Tampa's secondary could get torched, honestly, pretty easily. So tonight's game means a lot in terms of rankings for the NFC and the Super Bowl contenders, because if Green Bay goes in and blows out Washington, or the pass rush rattles Jay Daniels and they go in and win that game comfortably, doesn't necessarily have to be a blowout, but comfortably, the Packers are going to be talked about with the upper echelon of teams even more than they already are right now. So, yeah, that'll be a really interesting game tonight to see. Next thing I want to talk about is, could this be a career resurgence year for Trevor Lawrence, who the last few years, his career started off kind of weird. Like his rookie year, he threw a ton of interceptions. I remember I was in my senior year of high school when he was in his rookie year, and I remember his first game against the Texans. I was watching highlights in class. I forget where I was. I think I was in class. Yeah, I definitely was in class. And I was watching the highlights on the science lab table. And like, I just remember watching Trevor Lawrence. I think he threw like 3 or 4 interceptions his first game. I'm like 100% or I'm 99% certain it was like 3, but they were really bad interceptions. And everyone was like, okay, it'll be fine. He had a really rough rookie year, and the team was terrible. He had the Urban Meyer situation. No one holds that against him. It reminds me a lot of Caleb Williams' first year last year. That's why I know I kind of bashed Caleb Williams a little bit the other day about him not being able to be comfortable in the pocket. Those are legitimate flaws. Like, I'm not saying it for no reason because I don't like him or I want him to see him fail. Anything like that's a legitimate issue with Caleb Williams. And the thing is with Trevor Lawrence is, like, his first couple of years, his second year, Jacksonville kind of, I think, as long as I can remember, they kind of had a weird start, but they didn't necessarily have the best year. I think they finished 9-8, made the playoffs, and won a playoff game. They came back and beat the Chargers. Remember, they were getting destroyed against the Chargers, and Brandon Staley and the Chargers went on to go do Charger things in that game. You know, we know the history of the Chargers with choking games and stuff like that. And they can find a way to lose games like not a lot of other teams can manage to do. That's for certain. And Jaguars came back and won that game, and they were actually pretty competitive in the Kansas City divisional game that year. Now, no one really actually thought there was a chance in hell the Jags were going to beat the Chiefs, and they didn't. But they were decently competitive in that game, and that showed a lot. In the last few years, he's been dealing with injuries. There was also some question marks about how much he really wanted to play football, and just his leadership was in question in general. And that was definitely understandable. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, I think it may have actually been against Kansas City, or I forget who, I don't really remember who it was against, but I remember seeing Trevor Lawrence trying to hype up his team coming out of the tunnel, and it was almost depressing. That's how bad it was. It was depressing how bad he was trying to hype that team. And it was just no signs of life in the team or him at all. And he was like trying his best to hype up the team. It was really bad. You guys got to check out that video. It's on TikTok and stuff. That's where I've seen it, of course, was on TikTok. I was like, dude, oh my gosh, how are you so bad? How do you literally make it depressing to hype up your team? Like, that is how bad it was. And there was a quote of him before he came into the draft saying it was, see, I should have pulled it up before I started the podcast, and I meant to, but I got busy with something else real quick. But basically it was kind of just like, yeah, you know, I love football, but I don't really need it. It was somewhere in that realm where I wouldn't necessarily die for football. Like, dude, you're out there. If you were to sit there and tell Peyton Manning or Tom Brady that in their primes, Drew Brees in their primes, they'd half wring your neck, dude. I mean, they just sit there and look at you like, get out of my face. Those guys out there on the football field put their everything, the leadership and everything out there on the field. And Trevor Lawrence was kind of, whatever. Now, maybe this year is different. And this is what I'm saying is he looked really good on Sunday, and he's not injured. He's had some injuries. Last year, he was completely injury-plagued. I mean, between the shoulder, and then he took that bad hit against Houston, and that was just it. His season was really over from the start last year. New head coach, Travis Hunter, and he has a lot of offensive weapons out there. I like the defense, to be honest with you. I like the defense better than most. I think they have a pretty decent pass rush with Josh Hines-Allen. Trayvon Walker, who has been improving every year to this point. So I think this could be a really good year for the Jags and Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to talk about more about the NFC South here in a few minutes, so that's why I'm not going to go too in depth about that. But this could absolutely be a career resurgence for Trevor Lawrence. If he can just go and win a playoff game, which every time I say or when all I say is, if you just get to the playoffs, you could do anything. All you have to do is just get there first. That's why people get too ahead of themselves with saying like, okay, let's go. It's either Super Bowl or nothing for a team. Like honestly, New England's one of them, and I very much hyped up New England because I'm a Patriots fan, so of course I'm going to do that. And I really do believe in their team as a playoff team. But in terms of a Super Bowl team, it's like, let's just get to the playoffs first. And that's what I think with the Jags. Like, let's just get back to the playoffs first. Anything could happen once you get in there. You only have to go and win 3 games. And I say only, but you only have to win 3 games against some of the best teams in the NFL. So it's not like you only have to win 3 games against the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Browns. That'd be a pretty easy path. No, you have to go against the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. Like that's not an easy path at all. You have to win like 3 games against teams like that. You're at least going to have to face off against 1 or 2 of them at least. So the Jags' main point is just to get back to going to be 9-8 or 10-7 and maybe sneaking in a wild card spot. And then we can move on from there. If they can win a playoff game, that'd be great. But that would be massive for Trevor Lawrence's career. At this point, which it's been very disappointing. I mean, Trevor Lawrence's career has been disappointing. He's won a playoff game, I get it, but this dude was seen as Peyton Manning-like. I mean, by this point, we would have thought, okay, Trevor Lawrence is competing for a Super Bowl. Maybe he would have been to an AFC championship. He's not really anywhere near that right now. And some of it is out of his control. Understandably, he's playing for the Jaguars. The Jaguars are probably one of, if not the worst organizations in sports. I'm not talking about as of recently. I mean, kind of, but in terms of just sports in general, yeah, the Jaguars are terrible in terms of a franchise. They're a joke. They really are. I mean, I watch a lot of other podcasts. I'm not, and I just do the eye test myself. I watch every game of football every single year, and between the ownership, the signings, just the debacle at quarterback, but before Trevor Lawrence, the Jags have been terrible for pretty much my entire life. Really, yeah, my whole life they've been awful. They had that one outlier year, 2017, when they made the AFC Championship and were a few minutes away from actually going to the Super Bowl with Blake Bortles. That's when they had Jacksonville. And yeah, man, I mean, the problem that hurts him is he plays for the Jags. But regardless, he has a good team out there. It seems like he has a pretty competent head coach. And if he doesn't go out there and perform this year, Trevor Lawrence is going to be on the chopping block. I mean, what's crazy between like him and Caleb is Trevor's in year 5, and we're still sitting there saying, okay, this is his last chance here to prove himself. Caleb is going into his 19th game, and it's like his career is over already. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's fair. I mean, a lot of things in life aren't fair, but it's just people out there saying that Caleb Williams should be benched for Tyson Bagent after his 18th game, and we're in the 5th year of Trevor Lawrence, and we're like, okay, this is Lawrence's last chance, is absurd. It genuinely is absurd. So, I think this could be a career resurgence for Trevor Lawrence. I think the pieces are in place for him. If he can make the playoffs, just get back to the playoffs, maybe win a game in the playoffs or so, that'll be an absolutely amazing season for him in Jacksonville. That'll put him back within the top echelon of quarterbacks like he was the year he won a playoff game. People legitimately put him up there. So we know he has the athleticism for it and all the capabilities to be the elite of the elite, but it's time to show it on the field. We're in year 5 now, so this is the resurgence here, hopefully for Trevor Lawrence, that we're hoping to see. So next thing I want to talk about is, could Tua be traded if everything goes bad in Miami this season, which it already is going bad? I think this Sunday game for Miami and New England, I think if New England loses, their playoff hopes are just shot. I mean, their schedule sucks. If they can go 1-1, they have a legitimate chance, New England does, to go on like a 7-game win streak in the middle of the season. They have an awful schedule in the middle. So if they can win this game, start off 1-1, get a win under their belt and get some confidence under there. But if they go in and lose to Miami, it's over. And I think Miami will kind of pull back and people will kind of stop the talk about Miami. Now, I mean, I mentioned the other day that there's one team that seriously worries me, and it's Miami. So I don't think Miami's going to beat New England on Sunday. I legitimately think Miami's cooked. I think Miami is the favorites to win that game somehow. I mean, I really don't know how. I just between Tyreek Hill, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be in another jersey in about 4 or 5 weeks. I think Mike McDaniel will be gone midway through the season. They'll be with an interim head coach, and maybe they'll be looking at shopping Tua. I think the Dolphins could be tearing it all down here this time next year. This time next year, their team may look completely different. I mean, I know they just paid Tua a bag, but there's teams out there legitimately still looking for a quarterback that I guarantee you would trade for Tua. I mean, Tua's record as a starter is really good. I mean, the Dolphins' record with and without Tua is not even comparable. It's not even close. So Tua can win games. I just think the Dolphins, honestly, the Dolphins are kind of in the same realm as Jacksonville, at least within the last 20 years or so. The Dolphins have not been good in really at all in my lifetime. No, they just haven't. I mean, they had a few years ago, they kind of had the Legion of Zoom. I remember calling it with Waddle kind of in his rookie year. Tyreek Hill, I mean, really just in his prime, like 26 or 27 years old. Tua in like his second or third year. So, but that's gone. That's done. That offense of Mostert and Hill and Waddle and Tua playing healthy, that's gone. That's just done. And Mike McDaniel, does he even really want to coach there anymore? I know he's going to sit there and say he does, but the passion is, you can see it, the passion in him is drained. I think he'd rather just be an offensive coordinator at this point, because it hasn't worked for him in Miami. They've gotten to the playoffs a couple times, and they haven't really even been competitive in the playoffs. They played the Chiefs a few years ago, like one of the coldest games ever. I remember watching that with Andy Reid's mustache, like it was really frozen on his face. And the Dolphins weren't even close to that game. People were saying, well, it was so cold. You know, the Chiefs were playing in the same weather. And the Dolphins' offense was a lot more explosive than Kansas City. Now, the cold, the elements have to do with that, will hinder you a little bit, but they're both playing in the same weather. And that's the thing that I think kills Miami, is that they play in a warm weather state. So Miami has a massive advantage when they play at home in the winter months. Then their offense can really play like they can play the last few years. But man, when they go out and play in the cold, Miami's a different team. And now it's looking like everything is crumbling for Miami. We know the defense is not going to be great. They made Daniel Jones look like Peyton Manning last week in a Colts uniform. It's not looking good. There's too much going wrong for Miami. I said this about Indianapolis, and I still think it with Indianapolis. They had a great first week, but when they go against a lot more tougher competition than Miami, it's going to start crumbling on Indianapolis fast, I think, to be honest with you. There's a lot of noise and a lot of things, a lot of hurdles that these two teams have, and I think it's coming on Miami sooner than it is Indy. And Indy, I thought would have it first, because they had the Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones thing before the season started, with benching Richardson, and everyone was talking about how bad it was for the organization, how bad of a look it was, and I thought they'd be first, but no, Miami's first. So Tua could legitimately be traded. Now, whether or not it would be this season, I don't think he'd get traded this season. If it would, that'd be a shock, because I don't really know who he'd go to. I mean, would the Saints pick up the phone for Tua? I mean, that's a massive contract on a team that's cash-strapped. I don't really know. I mean, what if Bryce Young? I talked about Bryce Young going to be an MVP candidate this year, but after the first week, I'm a little worried about my take a little bit. Could he be falling back into bad habits, bad ways? And what if the Panthers maybe pick up the phone for Tua? I mean, I don't know. There's some options there. Again, this season, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen this season. That would be like something in the off season. But Tua might not be a Dolphin next year. If this all crumbles, which I think Sunday, if they lose to New England, no matter what, I don't think it'll be 38-0 bad like it was on Sunday, but whether or not it's 24-21 or 7-3 or 30-0, whatever it is, you know, I think if they just lose the game, that team's done. Tyreek Hill's going to want to be out of there. So it's going to get ugly for the Dolphins fast. And this time next year, it'll look like a completely different team. And I'd be curious to see whether or not Tua is a Raider, Tua's a Panther, whatever it is, wherever he goes. So we'll have to figure it out. Maybe he goes to the Rams. Maybe Stafford, I mentioned with his back injury a few minutes ago, Maybe he ends up going to the Rams. I think Sean McVay would freaking love to. I can tell you that. I mean, he's a good player when he's healthy and plays. I know he had a really bad game on Sunday, but the record with and without him is not even in the same realm. Next thing I want to talk about is, are the Texans going to win the AFC South? And the main reason why I mentioned this is because of Sunday's performance. 14-9. To me, they have the defense, but their offense is really bad. I thought the offensive line would be a little bit better than it was on Sunday. Again, week 1, teams breaking it in. Maybe they'll get better throughout the season, but that Texans offense at the end of last year as well did not look good, and it kind of is looking like it picked up where it left off. I think I'm telling you, I've really switched up on the AFC South. I just talked about why is no one talking about the Texans. Well, they keep playing like that, and no one's going to be talking about Houston anymore. Houston's kind of fell off a cliff the last year or so. They went from being a Super Bowl contender last year to being like, is this team even going to go to the playoffs this year? A lot of people are really out on the Texans. I'm not out on them quite yet. People falling on C.J. Stroud a little bit as well. He had a sophomore slump, and they had an okay game last week, but they scored 9 points. So something's off with Houston. I think Jacksonville could go on to win the AFC South. They look like the best team in the division. I know the Colts just scored 38 points and destroyed Miami, but I think in the long run, Jacksonville is going to end up being better than Indianapolis, and I think they could end up being better than Houston. I'd like to see what Houston's record is by week 3 or 4. That'll really be the telling sign. If Jacksonville's like 2-2 and Houston is 1-3 or 0-4, yeah, we'd have some serious issues. And I think Houston would be a lot of. The thing is with D'Amico Ryans is I don't necessarily think he'd get even close to being fired on the hot seat. We know he's a great coach. I think it's just the offensive line is really bad for Houston, like really, really bad. New England Patriots territory last year bad. Not quite as bad, but if they didn't have C.J. Stroud back there, they're struggling with Stroud back there. That's the thing, is like you have one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and you're still struggling. So that kind of tells you all you need to know is like they need next year to go out and really draft an offensive lineman, go out and sign a few. Like they really need the help on the offensive line. It seems like after week 1, some of those concerns have really came true for Houston. They were kind of hoping, okay, we signed Cam Robinson. Maybe we can somehow make it work. And Houston's worst nightmare is seeming to come true at this point. So that offensive line has to get fixed. The defense, again, is humming around. The defense held the Rams to 14 points last week. I mean, Houston was in the game all game. But, yeah, the defense is perfectly fine. It's the offense that's a massive issue for Houston. And this league's an offensive league now. Teams are up there. You want to compete with Baltimore in January, you're going to have to put up 20-something points at least. So, and I don't know if I can trust Houston to do that. I don't know if I can trust Houston to get 21 points a game. Like, I don't feel comfortable with Houston getting like 14 points a game right now. I have been for the last like 8 months. The last, I don't know, maybe 5 games or so, the regular season, they did not look good. They fell apart, really. Luckily, their division just stunk. So they didn't really have to worry about it. But this year, I think the division's a lot more competitive this year than it was last year. So Houston's in some trouble in the AFC South, I think. That's not a gimme division for Houston as it's been in the last year or two. They're in some legitimate trouble right now, I feel like. So they got to figure out the offense fast. Last thing I want to talk about today briefly is today, Brock Purdy now is out for 2 to 5 weeks with turf toe, it said, and I'm assuming Mac Jones is going to be the starter. I haven't seen him on the injury list or anything. I looked up their injury list. So the Mac Jones signing, I remember when the 2021 draft was around and the 49ers ended up drafting Trey Lance, but there was legitimate talks about them drafting Mac Jones at number 3. And here he is. We're going to see what Mac Jones looks like on San Francisco. Now the team is very injured. And here's some of the injuries they got. Purdy, toe injury, 2 to 5 weeks reported today. Kittle is now on IR with a hamstring after Sunday. Lenore, the cornerback, he has a hip injury. Kevin Givens, the one of the defensive tackles, is missing the start of the season with a pectoral injury. We've seen Brandon Ayuk last year. Jawan Jennings, he didn't practice yesterday. I don't know if he's practicing today or not, but he's very questionable for week 2. He might play in week 2, but luckily for him, though, he got some imaging, and it's looking good for his shoulder, but he's still extremely questionable for Sunday. And I think they're going to try pushing him out there to play, because now with Purdy out and Kittle out, they're really going to need Jawan Jennings out there, and Ayuk is not out there on the field either after last year. And then you have McCaffrey, who is not injured right now, but remember the report before Sunday, he may not play. Now, here's the thing, though, is that I'm not necessarily saying it's San Francisco's fault with McCaffrey. I'm not really saying it's for any of them, but McCaffrey, the second he stepped foot on an NFL field with Carolina, he's been injury prone. So it's been really bad the last year or so. I mean, he barely played last year, and this year he kind of seemed like he was off to a weird start, seeming like he may not play Sunday. He ended up playing, and they ended up winning the game, but the injury bug for the 49ers is, it's not only like one or two players that are just, it is just, the list goes on. It's their best players constantly out for the year, out for long stretches at a time, 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, I don't know if someone just went and put a hex on it, like they did some ritual next to the stadium or something, put a curse on the players. I don't know if it was a Seahawks fan or something. They ended up losing or something, and they went next to the stadium and just put some curse on the team that seems to be working. I mean, I legitimately don't know. I mean, if I had to assume so, I don't know if it's the practice fields, but the medical staff for the 49ers, and I've been seeing signs pointing to that now, and I've been thinking that it seems to be the issue with San Francisco. I'm not saying that they have no idea what they're doing or anything, but clearly they're not doing their job or something, because no team is dealing with this many injuries year in, year out. I don't know if it's the way they're practicing. I mean, I don't know if it's a drill they're all doing or what. It is just constant with San Francisco. Like, it's not a coincidence these players are getting injured like this on San Francisco every year. The Ravens, remember, they were just plagued with injuries year in, year out. Like San Francisco, constantly their best players out for long, long stretches of time, and you just wouldn't see them again for which just felt in forever. And it was killing them. And the Ravens ended up firing their medical staff, getting a whole new medical staff. The team's completely different now. I mean, those injuries, Ronnie Stanley stays healthy now. I mean, I remember Ronnie Stanley, what seemed like he was out for like 15 years. I know it was an exaggeration, but I mean, it seemed like he was just out. It seemed like we had not seen him play in like almost 5 years or something. He was out for so long a few years ago. The list just goes on, and Lamar was dealing with those injuries. They went and fired the medical staff. Ronnie Stanley's played pretty much every game. I mean, no one really gets hurt. You're going to have injuries in football. I don't care if you have the best doctors in the world sitting there on the sidelines and glued attached to their shoulders. Like, they're going to get injured no matter what. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any injuries on the field or there's not going to be. But when it's to the extent of what San Francisco's injuries are, it legitimately hinders any chance they have at ever winning a Super Bowl ever again. I mean, literally, I had San Francisco maybe finishing like 11-6 this season, but Purdy being out 5 weeks, Mac Jones, trust me, I've seen every snap of Mac Jones' career. Yes, even on Jacksonville's and especially New England's. If he plays anything like he did on New England the last few years, yeah, San Francisco's probably going to start off 2-4. They're going to be begging for Purdy back. Purdy is going to go from 2 to 5 weeks to like 2 weeks and begging for him back if he ends up playing anything like that. So, I mean, Kittle on IR, these are legitimately your best players on the team. Ayuk, I mean, we've seen the hit Ayuk talking. That was just brutal. His knees shattered. Who even knows if he comes back, if he's going to be nearly the same player he's going to be. It's tough for San Francisco. It really is. I don't know. I think they legitimately have to take a look at maybe pulling what the Ravens did a few years ago and doing a clean slate with the medical team and the training staff and those people there, and really just, going all in on a new medical staff and just seeing, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's some Kyle Shanahan, a drill they're doing at practice that is just tearing them alive. Like, that's making these guys so injury prone, I don't know. But it's not a coincidence this happens year in and year out for San Francisco. It's been the last 4 years this team has been injury plagued. So something's got to change. I don't know what it is. If I do assume, especially seeing what it was for the Ravens, it has to be something in that realm that they're going to have to take a look at. Again, some of them is just football on the field injuries, but players shouldn't get injured that easily either. Their players get injured. They're made out of paper or something over there. I do not know. We're all stunned with those San Francisco 49ers injury report every week. It just seems like it's, whether it's McCaffrey, it's Kittle, it's Ayuk, it's just their best players. Trent Williams every single week and as just of every year, the last 4 or 5 years, it seems like. So 49ers definitely got to make some changes, and I think this could really hurt their season. Luckily, they pulled out that win against Seattle last week, but if they didn't, this team would be in legitimate trouble heading into this weekend. The Kyle Shanahan talks may be on the table, I'll tell you that. And already people kind of saying, could Kyle Shanahan be on the hot seat if they have another bad season again? And not saying I necessarily agree, but it's the NFL, man. It's just business is ruthless out there in the NFL. They do not care. If they do not make the playoffs with talent or have constant injuries, they're just going to keep pointing to the head coach. So, yeah, 49ers definitely taking a blow there, missing Purdy for what could be up to 5 weeks maybe, and who knows if even longer at this point. So that is it for today's podcast. If you guys enjoyed the episode, remember tomorrow is Slips for Sundays here on the pod. If you want to win some money, check out my parlays. Make sure to check that out. I would like to get a friend with me on here, collab with, professional sports bettor. We talk about the overs, the unders, the spreads, stuff like that. So I'd like to have that on here soon. Definitely let you guys know when that is coming. That is going to come. That's not necessarily something that is not going to happen, because it is. But yeah, that'll be nice to get them on there. Some special guests all coming soon here on the pod. So if you guys really enjoyed it, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys on tomorrow's pod.